Hey there, I'm Dave, the Vintage Paperback Reader. Thanks for stopping by the channel. So today I'd like to discuss with you a bit of an obscure science fiction novel, science fantasy novel really, um, definitely by an obscure author. And this is The Amazons of Somelon, or Somelon maybe, not really sure. Either way, it's by Raymond Kaminski, and this was originally published in 1981 on Leisure Books. My copy is a 1983 printing on Stoneshire Books out of the UK. Um, so yeah, that's kind of interesting. Cover art is by Romas Kukalis, I think the name is. Sorry, still getting over the crud. Anyway, so yeah, a little bit about the author first of all. Couldn't find much about him. This is his only novel that I could come up with. He had written a couple of short stories, I think just prior to the publication of this, in 1979 and 1980. I believe the 1980 short story is in Galaxy magazine, July issue, and I found that online, which was interesting. The other one from 1979, I think, was in a maybe kind of a fanzine, sort of an indie zine called Eerie. There's a couple copies on eBay for $20, but I'm not that dedicated to dig that up. But then he seems to have disappeared. From what little I gathered, he was a science writer, but I don't know for what publications. Don't know what his educational background was. If he's still alive, no clue. But nonetheless, this being his only book and first book, I was still remarkably pleased by how well this all came together, actually. So what this is it's a post-apocalyptic novel on Earth, takes place on Earth. Apologize. After the nuclear war, which in the local vernacular was the Great Mushroom War, and based on some of the manipulations of place names, I think this might take place in the New York City area. Uh, if you read it, you'll see what I'm talking about, or you'll kind of come to that same conclusion, maybe. It centers on primarily three characters. There's Cheryl, which is the titular Amazon of Somelon, and that's her right there. There is her lover, boyfriend, whatever, Kyo, right here. And the primary antagonist is up here, Aluka, who is kind of the self-styled queen of the Horla. And Horla, they are basically a mutant human tribe. They're very, very base. They're debauched. They're kind of basically a cult of torture, if you will, torture and excess, violent excess. Um, so that's kind of our dynamic. And what happens is Cheryl and Q are in a caravan going across the Great Sugar Desert, which appears to be the remnants of a Ground Zero event. And they're in this caravan. They're set upon by Aluka and her horde, and Cheryl is left for dead. Kyo's captured by Aluka to be the latest in her string of boy toys. And what we get is essentially a story of revenge as Cheryl heads out across the desert. She's had run ins with the Horla before, and even Aluka specifically. She knows where their village is. It's built on an old landfill, which is kind of nasty. So there's her trek to the Horla encampment, or the village, if you would. Then we're also treated to a great deal of the book where Kyo experiences the torture, the humiliation, and various nastiness at the hands of Aluka and other parts of Aluka. And of course, in the end, there's the climactic battle. But what's interesting was there's kind of a twist on this on the ending here in the whole dynamic between those three characters. So, and that was pretty interesting. And like I said, I found this to be quite well written for a first novel, especially from somebody who's just like basically come out of nowhere, out of the blue, and put together a science fantasy novel. And again, the only reason I would call it a science fantasy novel is because it's post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear war. Everything else is definitely fantasy. There's a little bit of anachronistic pieces to it that you might find a little annoying. For example, they're definitely the characters, the civilization is definitely regressed into medieval swords, archery kind of thing. But then they know exactly what a plastic toilet seat is, so that's kind of odd. But just that's a minor gripe. Um, the descriptions are really well done. There's a real sense of depth to the characters, especially with what Keo goes through and how he copes internally with that. Cheryl is a little bit more two dimensional than I would have liked. She's definitely got a lot of inner conflict. For example, she comes from this warrior background, Amazonian background. They are raised from birth to treat men as objects, um, necessary evil for procreation, essentially. But she's one of the odd ones who actually develops feelings for Keto, who himself is really a I don't want to say a nobody sort of dude, but he's a stone cutter in this city called I think it's Megalopolis or Metro. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's one of those, kind of a generic name, but and the city is not very well developed. It's kind of something that's over there talked about. It's not the here and now. It's there. We know what it is. It's where all the, I guess, the weaker ones live. They live behind the walls. They live in their safety. They're not out here in the wilderness dealing with the Horla and all the other kind of nasty mutants that are running around. But anyway, so Keo has definitely a kind of a change of life as he leaves that sheltered existence and experiences what he experiences at the hands of Aluka and the other Horla, and how he develops his relationship and what his stance is in terms of just the pecking order of society. So that was really interesting. Again, remarkable for a first time author. Typically, you get these wooden, flat characters, and there's a little bit of that, but by and large, this was really well done. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. It's a good novel, I think, a good place to start. I wish he would have continued. I think I saw a blurb online that he had been working on a second novel. Of course, it may have been just this one under a different title. I don't know. But it would have been interesting to see this world developed a little bit more in depth. I mean, it was definitely a microscopic look at this world that was done really well. Although there were times, again, not sure what was going on. The author may have been having a fever dream or dropped acid or something, because, in the middle of these realistic for what they were descriptions, we start encountering centaurs and other mythical beings. Just seemed kind of odd. I don't know if that was a metaphor for something. Whatever. I don't know. But still, nevertheless, those were just a couple of passages that were kind of thrown. Just kind of were like, whoa, where'd that come from? But the remainder of the book was really good. So, yeah, if you're interested in an obscure one, see if you can check this one out, and I wouldn't hesitate to give it a try. Definitely for those of you who are into that whole science fantasy sort of stuff, as I am. All right, well, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by, and I hope you have a good one. Take care now.